The warnings highlight the danger of uncalculated and reckless steps impacting regional stability. Now, a massive explosion was reported near the U.S. Embassy at Oslo in Norway, and authorities had reported no casualties while adding that the cause of the incident is still unknown. Well, in a statement, the Oslo Police Department said that the explosion occurred in the early hours of Sunday at around 1 a.m. local time. Law enforcement officials say that the blast struck the entrance of the embassy's consular section. The explosion also caused a minor damage. Norwegian authorities have cordoned off the area near the U.S. Embassy. Oslo police are also on the lookout for the perpetrators of the incident. They also added that no explosives have been found in the vicinity. Police officials could be seen probing the site where the explosions took place. Eyewitnesses say that they saw a thick plume of smoke covering the entire street near the embassy.
Later I saw
And I saw like a thick layer of smoke that covered the whole, like the streets, where you like walking off the roads, but the streets. And later, I had a friend who told me that they tried to drive them here in the Bolt, Ed's Note, a ride-hailing app in Norway. And when they just asked to step out right here at Sørkedalsveien, Sørkedal Road, into Njardhallen, Njord Sports Hall, they got stopped by police.
There was protest.
All right, with that, we'll be calling a wrap to this bulletin, but don't go anywhere. News and updates will follow on the other side. You're watching WION The World. Stay tuned.
I'm Johan Castell, and you're watching a special episode of Wings brought to you from SATTE here at Yashobumi in New Delhi. This is South Asia's leading travel and tourism exchange.
The problem with NATO is that
in an ever-changing, fast-paced world, identifying the pulse of global happenings is important. Because it is the pulse that truly measures the real nature of world events. It monitors the shifting geopolitical landscapes and anticipates what lies ahead. At WION World Pulse 2026, we tap into the heartbeat of events that matter to you and to the world. 7 pulsating themes, 100 plus thought leaders, 1 dynamic platform. WION World Pulse. The rhythm of the new world order.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. More than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power. Only on WION. World is one.
Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Top Stories with me, Vidur Kathuria. Let's take a look at the top headlines we're tracking at this hour. US President Donald Trump says he's not interested in negotiating with Iran as US attacks may end wiping out all of Iranian leadership and military. Iran's Revolutionary Guards say they fight an intense war at the current pace of operations against the US and Israel for at least 6 months. Iran's elite force claims to have targeted more than 200 locations related to American and Israeli bases and facilities across the region. The Israeli military says it carried out a precise strike in Beirut on Sunday, targeting commanders from Iran's Revolutionary Guards operating in Lebanon. This as Lebanese officials say at least 4 people died in a strike on a hotel in central Beirut. Sri Lanka has discharged from hospital 22 Iranian sailors who were plucked from life rafts after their warship was sunk by a US submarine. The sailors were under treatment in Galle since Wednesday after Aris was torpedoed just outside Sri Lanka's territorial waters. A probe into the shooting at American consulate in Karachi hears that a US Marine opened fire in retaliation after a mob stormed the facility. 12 people were killed during the violent protest on March 1st after assassination of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Oil prices are expected to climb even further in the coming week as volatility persists in the Strait of Hormuz. Major oil-producing nations have already announced output cuts as supply chaos persists. The war in West Asia has spilled into its second week. Israel and US say their strikes have entered a new phase, hinting at intensifying and expanding the attacks. Iran, on the other hand, says it is ready for a long conflict, claiming the ability to fight an intense war for 6 months. US President Donald Trump says he is not interested in negotiating with Iran. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on Saturday, Trump said the air campaign could make negotiations a moot point if all potential leaders of Iran are killed and the Iranian military is destroyed. But a week into the war, any plan to cut off Iran's leadership, destroy its military ability and prevent it from rearming and regrouping has not fully materialized. Even faced with an unprecedented convergence of external pressure and internal strain, Iran is fighting back hard. The country has vowed to retaliate in a proportionate manner, but Iran said that it was ready for a long war, suggesting a more calibrated approach to their retaliatory actions. Now, the regional repercussions spiraled, with Saudi Arabia intercepting a wave of drones headed for targets including the diplomatic quarter in the capital Riyadh and Kuwait, saying an attack hit fuel tanks at its international airport. World leaders are warning against an endless war. German Chancellor Merz warns such a prolonged conflict may lead to a new migration crisis in Europe and lasting economic damage. Analysts bet the rise of a political military nationalist alliance is more likely in the near future. Even if Donald Trump finds an Iranian leader he can negotiate with, it will be challenging to find someone acceptable to Iranians, other nations, and global powers. Now, to discuss further on this, from Doha, we are joined by defense and strategic expert Colonel David DeRoche. Questions. Thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast, sir. It's been well over a week since the war started, and both sides are claiming that they are winning. But in terms of the actual situation on the ground, sir, who is actually winning the war at the moment?
Well, I'd have to give that hand to not Iran. Let me put it that way. I mean, I suppose the thing that's getting most people's attention here in Doha, and probably military analysts, is Iran's missile and drone campaign. We've seen the numbers there fall off. So there were over almost 400 missiles fired on the first day. I think we're down to about 15 missiles, maybe even in the single digits. So that's fallen off prodigiously. The drone attacks have fallen off as well. At the same time, we're seeing a lot of failure Iran has been unable to really, even with Hezbollah landing, they've been unable to keep the missile barrage up in Israel. And then we've seen what looks like just a desperate attempt to attack every country around Iran, to include Cyprus, Turkey, all the GCC states, and Azerbaijan. So none of these are things that you would do if you're winning. If you're winning, what you'd do we'd be seeing images over and over again of aircraft destroyed on the ground, Israeli and American aircraft. We haven't seen that at all. So I'd say Iran's losing.
So, sir, the IRGC claims that they are willing to prolong this war for 6 more months, and they are capable of it. Now, if the war is prolonged for that long, who do you think will benefit more from this?
Iran will. With Israel, it's kind of a push. They have the ability to, for Israel, this is an existential war, I think. I think that while they're always, you can always find a varying opinion on any issue in Israel, but most people, I think, in Israel have always been extremely concerned about Iran and would welcome the destruction of Iran's nuclear program and their missile program. In the United States, President Trump is such a polarizing figure. I mean, if he announced a cure for cancer, he'd probably 40% of the American population would be against that. And this is viewed as a war of choice, I think, in the United States. So if he can wrap it up within a month, then I think it will be seen as a stunning foreign policy victory. Still won't convince that hardcore people who really, really dislike him. But if it drags on, he's going to be in great political trouble. He has nailed his colors to the mast on this one.
Sir, I just want to get your perspective, since you're based in Doha, and so far the Gulf countries have not actively joined the war, even though they continue to be attacked. They remain a key part of the conflict. Is there any situation where the Gulf countries will be forced to play a more active role in this conflict?
I honestly think that they are going to do that at some point. I think that no sovereign state can be expected to take the damage that they've done. Doha, where I'm at, we haven't seen a lot of damage. We haven't seen damage to infrastructure in the city here, the way that you see the photographs in Dubai. It's worth noting, Iran has fired more missiles at the United Arab Emirates than they have at Israel. So you kind of ask yourself, well, who do they really see as their enemy? So I think that that country cannot afford to just say, oh, well, these things happen. I think they're going to have to, they don't want this to become a norm. that Israel can fire missiles at the GCC states whenever they feel like it. So I think there will be something. I'm not saying that they're going to, engage in a protracted warfare, but I think there will be some kind of retaliatory strike that we'll see in the future. I'm not sure when.
So now you spoke about Israel. Now Israel is now targeting the energy infrastructure in Iran. Now, how big of a hit is that to Iran in terms of their military capability?
Well, it won't directly affect their military capabilities. But what it will do is it will dry up. Energy is their only source of hard cash. And basically, they sell their energy mostly to China. A little bit of it through shore-to-shore illicit tanker transfers winds up in India. But China is really the big one here. And that's where they get their money from. So by disrupting that sector, it will starve all of the Iranian government and probably, of course, exacerbate the economic conditions that, led to the huge protests we saw in January and December. I think that Trump's theory of victory is that if he removes Iran's ability to reach out and strike its neighbors and then keeps the economic pressure on, that the next time you have protests, which will be probably this summer, the regime will be overthrown from within, and that will be a more lasting regime change.
So since you're talking about the Iranian authorities, so now Masoud Pezeshkian first apologized to the Gulf countries and then backtracked. So there is also an internal rift within the Iran leadership. Is that going to affect Iran's strategy in any way?
Oh yeah, it's pretty confusing. Basically, Iran is since 2009. There's been sort of a slow motion coup by the Revolutionary Guard. Pezeshkian is the president of Iran, but the Revolutionary Guard only answers to the supreme leader. And right now there isn't a supreme leader, so they're kind of on their own. So even while he was announcing his apology, Persian analysts, and I work pretty closely with two pretty good ones from Iran, were saying, well, apology in Persian means sorry. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm responsible for what happened. It means I'm unhappy with what has happened, which is not exactly how we understand an apology to be in English. And then we had a missile alert at the same time as, right after the apology was issued. So I'm not sure whether this is a deliberate strategy where the Revolutionary Guard or the Iranian government as a whole gets together and decides to kind of put people off balance, or whether you just have different factions of government that aren't coordinating with each other. But either way, I don't think anybody put much stock in the apology, and the behavior of Iran in attacking its neighbors continues the same as it did before the so-called confession.
Well, thank you so much for those insights. You, of course, are in Doha, in Qatar, and, of course, have a very good insight into the way the Gulf is reacting to this ever-evolving conflict. Thank you so much for those insights, sir. We'll, of course, continue tracking the most consequential geopolitical story at the moment.
Thank you.
Moving on, the real question now is if the current Iran conflict will turn into the 1973 oil crisis. Markets are obviously nervous about the growth and inflation implications from surging energy costs and potential supply issues from the Persian Gulf. Risk assets took a beating while energy prices across the board soared to worrying levels from the Iran crisis, which shows no signs of abating anytime soon. Now, crude oil marked the biggest weekly surge since 2022 due to the escalating war in West Asia disrupting energy markets. Benchmark Brent crude surged to over $93 per barrel, marking more than 20% surge for the war week. US crude posted the biggest weekly gain on record, adding 12% on Friday to settle just below $91 a barrel. the largest daily jump in almost 6 years. What happens to the world's energy markets and the consequences for the world from the Persian Gulf will depend on how long the Iran conflict lasts. Despite safe haven bets, gold fell 1.2% for the week, stalling 7 consecutive weeks of gains. The dollar and Bitcoin ended with gains for opposing reasons. Now, with major assets covered, let's shift focus to the Asia-Pacific stock markets. It was a sea of red across the region, with the bleeding in emerging markets the theme for last week. India's blue chip index fell nearly 3%, while Chinese stocks ended marginally in the red. Japan's Nikkei led the decline in the region with a 5.5% slump. The Aussie index closed out the war week with a near 4% fall. In the American region, Wall Street stocks slumped to mark their worst week since November, with the S&P 500 down over 1% on Friday. Beyond the market impact, the price being paid by the US for the war is largely economic. In less than a week, the cost of oil has jumped to $20 a barrel, turbocharging affordability issues plaguing many Americans. Other regional stocks also came under renewed pressure following days of volatility tied to the conflict in Iran. The Canadian benchmark fell 3.7% and the Brazilian Bovespa crashed 5%. Looking across the Atlantic, it was a bloodbath. UK benchmarks near 6% slump marked the lowest hit in the region. The South African index crashed the most with over a 9% fall. German and French benchmarks slumped well over 6.5%. The other regional assets took a beating, including currencies. Having looked at market moves, let's now turn to the overall economic outlook. First, let's take a look at Asia. The disruption in oil supply weighs the most on the Asian countries. Most countries in the region rely on energy imports from West Asia through the Strait of Hormuz, which is nearly shut. Apart from fears of running out of energy reserves, inflation worries have started to mount. Despite the short-term hit expected, India is still forecast to remain the best performing major economy in the world. The latest data preceding the Iran war indicates that India's growth surged even more. However, for several other countries in the region, the uncertainty from US tariffs are weighing on the growth outlook. In addition, China continues to battle a property recession and a deep deflation from weak demand. Reflecting those concerns, Beijing at the two sessions meetings set its growth target at the lowest since 1991. In the Americas, surging gasoline prices have created new political woes for President Trump. The Iran war adds to the already mixed messages on the macro front, clearly reflecting a clouded outlook. Job growth in the US has stalled, with some indicators flashing a recessionary sign. At the same time, inflation worries have come into focus after higher than expected factory gate prices and surging energy costs. Big Wall Street banks caution that stagflation risks are on the rise, even as inflation does not yet reflect the much feared tariff impact. Trump's trade rhetoric extended to other economies in the region. In Europe, the standard norm across the region, even before the Iran war started, was a muted economic environment. The West Asia conflict adds to the region's woes. Europe's growth engine, Germany, is struggling to get its manufacturing activity back on track. The GDP in the UK just about showed some growth in the final months of 2025. In addition to those concerns, Trump's trade brinksmanship is hurting the economic outlook for the region. A massive explosion was reported near the US Embassy at Oslo in Norway. Authorities reported no casualties, while adding that the cause of the incident is still unknown. In a statement, the Oslo Police Department said that the explosion occurred in the early hours of Sunday at around 1 a.m. local time. Law enforcement officials said that the blast struck the entrance of the embassy's consular section. The explosion also caused minor damage. Norwegian authorities have cordoned off the area near the US Embassy. Oslo police are also on the lookout for the perpetrators of the incident. They also added that no explosives have been found in the vicinity. Police officials could be seen probing the site where the explosions took place. Eyewitnesses say that they saw a thick plume of smoke covering the entire street near the embassy.
Later, I saw
And I saw like a thick layer of smoke that covered the whole like the streets, where you like walking off the roads, but the streets. And later, I had a friend who told me that they tried to drive them here in the Bolt, Ed's Note, a ride-hailing app in Norway. And when they just asked to step out right here at Sørkedalsveien, Sørkedal Road, into Njardhallen, Njord Sports Hall, they got stopped by police.
there was protest.
The New York police have arrested 6 people after a man threw what officers said were ignited devices near the official residence of New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani. The incident took place while far-right protesters were demonstrating at the Creasy Mansion. The New York Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch said the incident occurred when someone in the counter-protest lit and threw a device she described as a bit smaller than a football into the protesting crowd of about 20 people. According to the NYPD, far-right influencer Jake Lang was demonstrating against alleged Islamification in front of the residence of Mayor Zohran Mamdani when a man wearing a sweatshirt was handed a device wrapped in tape and billowing smoke by a fellow activist. He dropped it near a line of police before vaulting a crash barrier. The man also threw a similar device near Lang's group of protesters.
At 12:15 p.m., a protester associated with the Jake Lang group used pepper spray against counter-protesters and was arrested thereafter. At approximately 12:38 p.m., a counter-protester identified as Amir Balat, an 18-year-old man, lit and threw an ignited device toward the protest area, landing in the crosswalk of East 87th Street and East End Avenue.
The devices contained nuts, bolts and screws as well as a fuse, but it was not yet clear if they were functional improvised explosive devices or hoax imitations. She clarified that there was no indication that the incident was related to the ongoing hostilities in Iran. Witnesses reported seeing flames and smoke as it traveled through the air before it struck a barrier a few feet from police officers. He also got a second device from a man, but moments later, he and the other man were detained by police. The police has apprehended 18-year-old suspect Amir Balat along with 6 others. In another related development, the New York Police Department has reported the death of one of its officers due to a medical episode while deployed to Kuwait in support of Operation Epic Fury. Officer Sorfly Davius served in the 42nd Infantry Division in the U.S. Army National Guard. Today is the 8th of March. For more than a century, people around the world have marked International Women's Day on this day. It is a day dedicated to celebrating women's achievements and driving awareness around issues of gender equality. The UN theme for this year's International Women's Day, Give to Gain. It encourages us all to help forge gender equality through generosity and collective action. In our next story, we delve into the origins of International Women's Day and explore why it continues to be relevant today. This as we wrap up this bulletin.
Every year on the 8th of March, women around the world hold marches, rallies and events to celebrate International Women's Day, advocating for gender equality and women's rights. But what is the day for? Who started it? And why does it matter even today? Let's understand. The seeds of this special day were planted in 1908 when 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding shorter working hours, better pay and the right to vote. A year later, in 1909, the day was declared as National Women's Day in the United States. The idea is to make it an international event. The idea to make it an international event came from women's rights activist Clara Zetkin. The following year, in 1910, Clara Zetkin raised it at an international conference of working women in Copenhagen. And thus, the first International Women's Day was celebrated in 1911 in Austria, Denmark, Germany and Switzerland. Meanwhile, in 1913, in Russia, women started observing International Women's Day on the last Sunday of February. Then in 1917, demonstrations on International Women's Day in St. Petersburg, Russia, where women demanded bread and peace, gave birth to the February Revolution. This eventually brought the First World War to an end and the decline of the Tsar regime. While the color pink is traditionally associated with feminine energy, it is not used to represent International Women's Day. Purple, green and white are the colors of International Women's Day. These colors were used by the Women's Social and Political Union, a group set up in the UK in 1903 to fight for women's votes. The campaign encourages a mindset of generosity and collaboration. It emphasizes the power of reciprocity and support. When individuals, organizations and communities give generously, opportunities and support for women also increase. International Women's Day is a movement. It's a day of celebration that belongs to all those committed to forging gender equality. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Problem with NATO is that
In an ever-changing, fast-paced world, identifying the pulse of global happenings is important. Because it is the pulse that truly measures the real nature of world events. It monitors the shifting geopolitical landscapes and anticipates what lies ahead. At WION World Pulse 2026, we tap into the heartbeat of events that matter to you and to the world. 7 pulsating themes, 100 plus thought leaders, 1 dynamic platform, WION World Pulse. The rhythm of the new world order.
Get the latest updates.
destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION World is One.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Beyond World is One with me, Diksha Bisla. Let's start with the headlines. Iranian officials says the US and Israel warplanes hit 5 oil facilities in overnight strikes in and near the Iranian capital. 4 oil depots and a petroleum products transport center were also hit. Bahrain says Iran attacked civilian targets and caused material damage to a water desalination plant followed by a drone attack. At least 3 people were injured. President Trump says the US strikes will continue till Iran's unconditional surrender. Dismisses threats from Iran's top official, Ali Larijani, who has said that Trump must pay the price for the US-Israel strikes on Iran. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says that India and China should view each other as partners and not rivals. Yi says that both countries should stick to the direction set by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping to improve ties without interference. Oil prices are expected to climb even further in the coming week as volatility persists in the Strait of Hormuz. Major oil-producing nations have already announced output cuts as supply chaos persists. Mercedes driver George Russell wins the first Formula One Grand Prix of the new era. Russell leads a Mercedes 1-2 lead at the 2026 season opener in Melbourne. Indian origin driver Arvind Lindblad has finished a creditable 8th on his F1 debut. The war in West Asia has exploded further with strikes targeting an oil storage facility in Tehran. Missiles and drone attacks continue across the Gulf even after Iranian president's apology. And among all this, Israel continues to pound Lebanon. Let's take a look at the latest developments. Well, Israeli army said that it launched a wave of strikes targeting Iran's military infrastructure across Iran. Interceptors against Iranian missiles were seen over the skies of occupied West Bank and Jerusalem. Plumes of smoke were seen rising from the site of an explosion in Beirut following Israeli strikes, including one on a hotel that killed at least 4 people. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates says that its air defense systems are responding to incoming missiles and drones which were launched from Iran. Amid the ongoing crisis, chartered cargo flights are bringing food supplies to the UAE as retailers continue to reinforce supplies across stores. In Kuwait City, fire engulfed the main building of Kuwait's public institution for social security. Kuwait military said it was dealing with a drone attack with shrapnel causing damage to civilian buildings. The US Embassy in Oslo was also hit by an explosion, with eyewitnesses saying that they saw a thick cloud of smoke rising from the area.
Later I saw...
And I saw like a thick layer of smoke that covered the whole like the streets, where you like walking off the roads, but the streets. And later, I had a friend who told me that they tried to drive them here in the Bolt, Ed's Note, a ride-hailing app in Norway. And when they just asked to step out right here at Sørkedalsveien, Sørkedal Road, into Njardhallen, Njord Sports Hall, they got stopped by police.
There was protest.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard said the country's forces could fight an intense war for 6 months against the US and Israel president. Masoud Pezeshkian added that Tehran will respond strongly to any attack or attempts of invasion from a neighboring country. Well, US President Donald Trump says he's not looking to negotiate with Iran's remaining leadership, and he told reporters on Air Force One, and I'm quoting him here, "They'd like to settle, we're not looking to settle." He described the ongoing US operations in Iran as an excursion and said that the issues such as rising gas prices and the safety of Americans would improve once the conflict ends. China has condemned the war in West Asia, calling it a war that should never have happened and one that will benefit none.
Force must not be abused. A strong fist does not mean strong reason. The world cannot return to the law of the jungle. Using force at every turn can't prove one's own strength, and the people cannot become innocent victims of war.
And for more on this, we're now being joined live by Ben Aris. He's the founder and editor-in-chief of BNE IntelliNews and also former Moscow bureau chief for the Daily Telegraph. Thank you so much, Ben, for joining us on the broadcast.
My pleasure.
And the conflict has entered the second week now, and Prime Minister Netanyahu has claimed that Israel and the US have gained almost complete control over the skies of Iran, and they still have many more targets and surprises prepared. And all of this while Iran's hierarchy is set to be showing signs of fracturing, and which have become more pronounced after Pezeshkian's promise to not strike the Gulf states. Now, Ben, what's your assessment of where the conflict is headed from here on?
I think it's a race against time. I mean, we've got two sides. On one side, you've got the US-Israeli alliance, and they are massively armed, and they're doing the classic shock and awe strategy, where you go in with overwhelming force and you try and deal a death blow in the first few weeks. That's to decapitate the Islamic State, which has happened very successfully, and at the same time to strike and take out as much of the military might of Iran as you can. You blow up dumps, you blow up army bases. Specifically, the Israeli-US team are going after the launchers. Iran has some 2,000 missiles and some very deadly ones. But if you destroy the 200-odd launchers that Iran has, then it can't fire them and they become useless. And on the other side of the equation, because it's an asymmetrical war, Iran is hunkering down. It's fired a massive volley of missiles in the first days, designed to do the same thing and to take out as much of the Israeli attack and defense as it can. And then it retreats, it hunkers down, it hides, and it tries to outweight the American assault. And the reason is that the number of offensive missiles that the US has is limited. The number of defensive missiles that the US and its allies have is limited. And part of the reason of the initial volley is not necessarily to do damage, it's just to run down the stocks of defensive missiles. And then Iran has this drone capacity. It can make 150,000 drones, 400 a day. And what it's going to do now is just wear away and denigrate the ability to defend itself. So we're exactly at the point in the middle of this strategy. I mean, it's not clear who's winning. I mean, there are reports of the US already running low on missiles. There are reports of significant damage to the IRGC's ability to fire back. And this is what's going to play out in the next week. We're going to see which way this is going to go.
Right, Ben, and you've rightly pointed out this is in fact an asymmetrical war, and we have this strategy of shock and awe on one side and this war of attrition on the other. But if we could just zoom in of what we are seeing from the Iranian side, where now officials are trying to decipher President Pezeshkian's apology and also the authority behind it. They have largely urged caution in reading it as a sign of Tehran seeking an off-ramp or surrender. Also, as Trump would like to categorize it, because neither side seems willing to step back at this point. Now, does that also heighten the risk of the conflict becoming more protracted than the US would have liked?
I think there's a very high risk of it becoming more protracted. Like I said, if the IRGC successfully sort of weathers the initial blitz, which seems to have happened, then the IRGC, I mean, it's triggered its so-called decentralized mosaic defensive strategy. And what that means is that they've broken the forces into cells. They've been issued standing orders before this conflict started in preparation where they can act autonomously and pick targets on their own. And that means you've got a hydra, you've decapitated the central command, but the military machine still works. And now you've got to stamp out, multiple small bushfires across Iran amongst the coalition forces. And that's going to be incredibly hard to do. And there's also confusion at the top. Peshkian, the president said, look, we're going to stop attacking GCC states, our neighbors. But the IRGC came out like within hours and said, no, that's not true. And they continued those attacks. And with this decentralized structure, then I think there's either a split at the top, or at the top, the president sort of lost control of the situation, because the military machine is now fighting headless on its own and will continue to do so. And so again, it's up to the coalition forces to deal this death blow in this next week or so. Otherwise, then we're looking at a very protracted war, more than the month that Trump is talking about.
Right, and while of course it is expanding on, this one polarity of time, the conflict is also rapidly widened, spilling into Lebanon and reaching as far as the Eastern Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean as well. And the burden is being felt by allies and countries that did not seek this war. But Trump has made it clear that diplomacy is a dispensable tool and he will only accept Iran's unconditional surrender, while leaving open, of course, the possibility of deploying American troops on the ground. Now, how far will Trump be willing to go given the economic and humanitarian toll is, continuing to mount with each passing day? And Americans, we already know that they do not have an appetite for these open-ended wars as we've seen in the past.
And doubly so in this case. Again, it's, as I said, the shock and awe tactic, and the idea is, in examples in Libya, in Iraq, that you take control very quickly of the country, and then you move into the more difficult phase of trying to put in a new government that's friendly to you, suppress the insurrections. But Trump's got a double deadline on this, because not only do Americans not want a forever war, and he has been selling himself as a peacemaker who's worthy of a Nobel Prize. And here he is, having started the biggest conflagration in the Middle East that we've seen in decades. But he faces the midterms, crucial elections in November, where the Republicans are likely to lose control of the House. And if he goes into those elections and this war is not only continuing, but sparks a major global economic crisis through an inflation shock, through oil prices spiking, then that will just worsen his position in those elections, which are key to him. And so he's going to be very, very keen to bring this quickly to an end. But it remains to be seen if he's able to do that. Personally, I think the States keeps overestimating the power of their military. Their military is the most powerful, but is that enough to win a war like this in 2 weeks? And if we look at what happened in Iraq, if we look at what happened in Afghanistan, then it isn't. And it seems that he's running the danger of having made that mistake again.
Absolutely. And of course, to win a war, you also need to understand what is the definition of success. And there is still some ambiguity there. And we've seen in the past that in many cases that ambiguity has actually, aided Trump in declaring victory, or declaring how the in which way the winds are blowing at a very opportune time. But the chances of seeing a repeat of what we saw perhaps in Venezuela would perhaps be a grave miscalculation on Trump's part here, because the 93 million people of Iran, even though they may be deeply unhappy with the current regime, them accepting a pro-American regime seems unlikely according to many experts. Now, what are the odds that it won't instead consolidate the hardline forces and perhaps trigger a survival response from Iran instead?
I think that's the default assumption, that this is going to consolidate the hardline fractions led by the IRGC. They get to pick a new leader now, process that started already. And you mentioned Venezuela. I think that's what's driving Trump, that he's been extremely vague about what the goal of this war is. But it seems, actually, from his comments, the first video he released on the first day is that it's decapitation. He was encouraged by the success of the Venezuelan operation, and that he wanted to decapitate the government and then pause in order to restart the mass protests in the hope that the population would overthrow the government, and then there would be elections. And the former the Shah's son is in the States, and he could be put in as an interim leader friendly to the US in order to oversee that. But again, Iran, as you mentioned, is a very different country from somewhere like Venezuela.
Right.
And in many of those countries, they were led by dictators. So if you take that person out, like Assad, like Gaddafi, then the regime collapses. Whereas Iran is very institutionalized. It's built to deal with crises like this. They've anticipated a decapitation, and the mechanism to put a new leader in and the command structures to operate without the top layer are all there. So the whole idea that you can engineer some sort of colored revolution and get the people to overthrow the Islamic Republic, Islamic State, I think is a long shot. And that actually seems to be what the White House's plan is.
Right. Ben, stay with us. We have some breaking news coming in. Of course, I would like to get your reaction on that. We've understood that the situation in West Asia is still very delicate, and the variables, continue to move, and they're yet to fall in place. And of course, we have alerts pouring in by the minute. And in the latest, the Assembly of Experts in Iran has reached a majority consensus regarding the successor to the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And according to Mehr News Agency, the Assembly of Experts member Mir Bagheri stated that a majority consensus has more or less been reached, and however, the body has a minor disagreement over whether their final decision must follow an in-person meeting or instead be issued without adhering to this formality.
The respected members of the Assembly of Experts have made great efforts to determine the leadership in these days and have not failed, and thank God, the decisive and complete opinion, which is the opinion of the majority, has been provided.
On Wednesday, Iran's Leadership Council has informed state media that a successor would be appointed at the earliest opportunity. Iran state media has reported that citizens will bid farewell to the late Supreme Leader in a ceremony which is scheduled for tonight at Tehran's Imam Khamenei prayer ground. The ceremony is expected to last for 3 days, with the final funeral procession to be announced once it is finalized. Of course, this is the latest we're getting, where the Assembly of Experts in Iran has reached a majority consensus regarding the successor to the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Well, Ben, this is the latest we're getting. How are you reading into this?
Well, like I was saying, the mechanisms in order to produce a new leader are well established, and here it is. The 88-member Council of Experts is there to choose a new leader, which is sort of by consensus within the ruling elite, and the ruling elite will buckle under when this person's chosen by this formal mechanism. And this is what gives the system, the Islamic State, its robustness, because they have a large pool of people to choose between, and they'll simply install a new head. So the decapitation strategy is neutered by that. And the assumption, the hope that the regime will fall once you take out the leader is also neutered, because they just simply put a new leader in, and remains to be seen who that's going to be. The IRGC is pushing for hardline candidates, but there are some softer candidates there. President Pashkian himself is much more liberal and would be willing to do a deal of some sort to bring the fighting to an end, and he would be willing to put in some sort of reforms as well in order to get a sanctions relief package, which is also a possibility on Trump's side, because, as I said, Trump is desperately keen to finish this quickly. And so if you had a softer candidate come in who's willing to deal and give up some stuff, then a deal could be done fairly quickly. And I should highlight that the day before this war was done, the Iranian foreign minister was in Geneva and agreed through Omani mediation to end the nuclear missile program, the nuclear enrichment program. And that deal was expected to be signed. And on the very next day, the missiles started flying. However, that remains, given that's in place, in principle, that remains an option and could be rolled out. But a lot will depend on who they nominate to take over.
Absolutely, Ben. And you've rightly pointed out the Iranian regime is prepared to absorb these shocks, this war and assassination, and they've done exactly that. But of course, we know that, again, a lot of variables remain to fall in place. We'll have to see how the situation evolves from here. But for now, thank you so much, Ben, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us. The war in West Asia has spilled into its second week. Israel and the US say that their strikes have entered a new phase, hinting at intensifying and expanding the attacks. Now, Iran, on the other hand, has said that it is ready for a long conflict, claiming the ability to fight an intense war for 6 months. US President Donald Trump says that he is not interested in negotiating with Iran. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on Saturday, Trump said the air campaign could make negotiations a moot point if all potential leaders of Iran are killed and the Iranian military is destroyed. Initial military strikes by Israel and the US has already killed several senior members of Iran's political and military leadership, including Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. But a week into the war, any plan to cut off Iran's leadership, fully destroy its military ability, and spark a popular uprising against the current regime has not fully materialized. Since then, American and Israeli military claim to have struck about 4,000 targets in Iran, eroding Iran's capability to launch missiles and drones.
Ballistic missile attacks have decreased by 90% since day one. Drone attacks have decreased by 83% since day one. Having said this, we remain vigilant. Our strikes against the Iranian Navy have intensified.
However, Iran still has a formidable arsenal of both drones and missiles. The New York Times, citing estimates provided by US officials to Congress in classified briefings this week, reported that Iran still retains as much as about 50% of its missile program and even more of its drones. Well, Iran has also said that it is ready for a long war, suggesting a more calibrated approach to their retaliatory actions. Iran's elite military force, IRGC, has claimed that it is capable of continuing at least a 6-month intense war at the current pace of operations.
The strikes carried out by the Islamic Republic will continue. We will not let them go. They should not think that we will allow the Americans to quickly bring this matter to an end and say, "We struck them, now let's wrap it up." This can only be wrapped up when they understand that they no longer have the right to attack Iran and when they compensate the Iranian nation for the damages. This disgraceful act they have created on the international stage carries a heavy cost. They assassinated the leader of Iran. The price for it will not be small.
Meanwhile, the regional repercussions have spiraled, with Saudi Arabia intercepting a wave of drones headed for targets including the diplomatic quarter in capital Riyadh, and Kuwait saying an attack hit fuel tanks at its international airport. A government office building in Kuwait City was damaged after a drone attack, and the footage showed fire engulfing the main building of Public Institution for Social Security. Earlier, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian had apologized to Arab countries in the Persian Gulf for shooting scores of missiles and drones at them in retaliatory strikes. But even after the apology, the attack continued. Well, today is the 8th of March, and for more than a century, people around the world have marked International Women's Day on March 8th. It is a day which is dedicated to celebrating women's achievements and driving awareness around issues of gender equality. The UN theme for this year's International Women's Day is Give to Gain, which encourages us all to help force gender equality through generosity and collective action. We're going to leave you with this next report, where we delve into the origins of International Women's Day and explore why it continues to be relevant today. Stay tuned. You're watching Beyond World this month.
Every year on the 8th of March, women around the world hold marches, rallies and events to celebrate International Women's Day, advocating for gender equality and women's rights. But what is the day for? Who started it? And why does it matter even today? Let's understand. The seeds of this special day were planted in 1908 when 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding shorter working hours, better pay and the right to vote. A year later, in 1909, the day was declared as National Women's Day in the United States. The idea is to make it an international event. The idea to make it an international event came from women's rights activist Clara Zetkin. The following year, in 1910, Clara Zetkin raised it at an international conference of working women in Copenhagen. And thus, the first International Women's Day was celebrated in 1911 in Austria, Denmark, Germany and Switzerland. Meanwhile, in 1913, in Russia, women started observing International Women's Day on the last Sunday of February. Then in 1917, demonstrations on International Women's Day in St. Petersburg, Russia, where women demanded bread and peace, gave birth to the February Revolution. This eventually brought the First World War to an end and the decline of the Tsar regime. While the color pink is traditionally associated with feminine energy, it is not used to represent International Women's Day. Purple, green and white are the colors of International Women's Day. These colors were used by the Women's Social and Political Union, a group set up in the UK in 1903 to fight for women's votes. The campaign encourages a mindset of generosity and collaboration. It emphasizes the power of reciprocity and support. When individuals, organizations and communities give generously, opportunities and support for women also increase. International Women's Day is a movement. It's a day of celebration that belongs to all those committed to forging gender equality. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics, more than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION. World is One.
I'm Johan Castell and you're watching a special episode of Wings brought to you from SATTE here at Yashibumi in New Delhi. This is South Asia's leading travel and tourism exchange.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is One.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I please have your attention? Please have your tickets in hand before you board the plane. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. I'm Johan Castell and you're watching a special episode of Wings brought to you from SATTE here at Yashibumi in New Delhi. This is South Asia's leading travel and tourism exchange.
We spent 3 days covering this industry mega event in New Delhi. Now in its 33rd edition, this is, in our experience, the biggest and most impressive yet.
What we aim by doing SATTE year on year is that showcase India as a base, but promote South Asia as a big destination across the world. And I think clearly, what we want to showcase is how India as a country is really booming in terms of travel. This show has every element from outbound, inbound to domestic. I think every element is covered over here, right from support from the Ministry of Tourism, which is a leading partner for the show, who's a promoting partner, along with 28 states which come into the show, and also over 60 destinations from across the world who are promoting this.
We are celebrating 33 years of the show, and the entire conceptualization of the show was to promote South Asia as a holistic destination to the world in large. I think India encompasses everything what a traveler wishes to experience. But alongside that, we have countries like Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, which create a different experience. So while a traveler is coming into India, so how we can package a longer holiday within the entire region. So that's what the that's what the crux for SATTE is.
One of the highlights of the event was the strong focus on state tourism.
Your latest campaign that is Beyond Myths and Mountains. Tell us, what is this all about? What all is in store? You're driving this shift away from mountains and monasteries. Tell us what's in store and how are you looking to market it to a global audience?
See, Arunachal, we have been, branding ourselves in a very, generic way, in very trying to put all things together. So we thought, we must be more specific about how we brand ourselves and how we showcase ourselves to the, the world. So we thought, we must do a new campaign and a new look for the brand, like putting in fresh breath. So that's how the whole idea came about, the new logo and the new tagline, the Beyond Myths and Mountains. If you see the logo, so the letter Arunachal is very, very loud, so that people know that that is all about Arunachal. And the red is that circle, the semicircle, it shows the rising sun, because we all know that Arunachal is known as the land of the rising sun. And the blue that streaks shows the mountain and the river. So that we're trying to encompass the whole character of Arunachal in the logo and in the tagline saying Beyond Myths and Mountains, because people know Arunachal as a mountainous state, and there are a lot of myths accompanied with that, but we tell them it's much more than the mountains and myths which you think about. So you must come and explore Arunachal Pradesh.
Jammu and Kashmir also made a strong pitch to revive tourism under the Kashmir Chalo campaign, a much-needed boost for the tourism industry in Kashmir after last year's Pahalgam attack.
For tourism to really become an important part of J&K's economy, it has to spread to areas that were hitherto untouched by tourism. And we have to do it in a very careful and a sustainable way. And that's why we're talking about developing 9 new greenfield destinations across Jammu and Kashmir to take advantage of the beauty and the natural affinity that people have to visit Jammu and Kashmir. A resurgence or a strengthening of our tourism allows us to strengthen employment opportunities in otherwise rather difficult areas. Some of the areas I named, you would not see any other investment except investment into tourism.
One impressive exhibition was held by the Union Territory of Ladakh. Here, a traditional musical performance was showcased in traditional attire.
How excited are you for the tourism in Ladakh in 2026? Do you want people to come and explore Ladakh?
For every tourist traveling to Ladakh, my advice is to truly immerse yourself. Try our special cuisine, meet the people, experience our community gatherings and way of life firsthand. There are so many beautiful ancient monasteries here worth visiting, along with historical sites that reflect our deep-rooted culture. These are experiences you really shouldn't miss.
Perhaps its most important aspect, SATTE was about providing the industry with a platform to connect and create partnerships.
Are international tourism boards specifically calibrating strategies for Indian travelers, looking at how tourism is evolving in the country?
What's very important about your question is how they're working together, and that's what's really critical. The tourism boards are no longer standalone. They're creating partnerships, country to country, state to state, city to city, and that's allowing much stronger tourism flows and creating ways of, again, getting the accessibility, getting the visa policies in place. So this is where an event like this is important, to create those partnerships for smart tourism development that is efficient, because ultimately tourism is about the tourism economy, not only the tourism attraction, and you need to keep that moving all year round.
Actually, we are here not only to promote Egypt Air as airline, we come here to promote Egypt as a destination for Indian market. Egypt and India have a very deep historical ties, and now our mutual and bilateral relations on the top. So we are here for the third consecutive years to promote Egypt as a destination and to promote Egypt Air as the flag carrier of Egypt.
Visiting SATTE from I think 2 decades now. So every year, whenever I'm coming, finding new things, new opportunities, meeting new people, and I have a good business flow for the entire year. That's my reason coming to SATTE. I always enjoy coming here.
Gold leaf and dry flower.
Oh, this is like when you go to the Buddhist temple in Thailand. You get the gold leaf. Yeah.
Last year we got about 2.4 million Indian people to Thailand, and this year we hope in 2026 we hope 2.5 million Indian people to Thailand. That means it's increased about 16% from last year too.
WION is here at SATTE 2026. We are here at the Sri Lanka booth right now, and it looks like the opening ceremony for the Expo so far for this exhibitor. We can see a group of decorated individuals full in traditional attire.
With the last year tourist numbers, that India recorded as the highest number of tourists arrived to Sri Lanka. So India is the main tourist source to the Sri Lanka. So that's why we get this kind of huge stall here, because we need to give more aware about the Sri Lanka among the Indian tourists. So I think this year, so we are planning to double the Indian tourist numbers.
So we are here with Tenzin from the Bhutan stall. Tenzin, what is the USP of Bhutan? Why should people visit in 2026?
The people in Bhutan are always believe in national happiness under the great leadership of our king. So that's some reason that we have different cultures and very unique cultures. Even to the monuments, these things are something like untouched from the 7th centuries, 6th centuries, and also our king is always the well-being of the people of this nation. So that's why I think people should come in Bhutan to experience the culture and then also enjoy the carbon negative atmosphere in the country.
Speaking of unique things, I'm noticing that you have a little display here with some kind of snacks. It looks to me like something I've never seen before. Is it perhaps homemade cornflakes, or what type of snacks are these?
Thank you, sir. This is actually is a homemade cornflakes, but it is roasted and then hand-beaten corn, and it has a sugar-free. And usually in my country, in the morning it's a very cold country sometimes in the winter, so people drink a lot of butter tea, yak butter tea. So it goes together with the tea in the mornings.
That's a good thing to have on the display, representing the country. Thank you so much for your inputs. Can I try one piece? Yeah.
I bought it for you all, sir. How is it?
Ooh, it's very crunchy. Very unique experience. This is only a taste of what's to come if you visit Bhutan in 2026.
It's been a pretty massive program, and we've seen a big attendance over here. I think maybe about 40-50 hotel chains are coming over here. And we also have about 12 international, stands. So the hotel industry and the tourism industry, they're quite close to each other. They're correlated, and they work together. And we've seen good response as such.
As SATTE 2026 drew to a close, it is clear that the new connections and partnerships forged at the exhibition will take the travel and tourism trade into the future, one that is advancing rapidly for this industry in India.
India is the second biggest sourcing market for tourists to Malaysia. They now have a very ambitious plan from Malaysia to attract 35% more Indian visitors in 2026. In order to achieve this, they've launched a big campaign to draw in more visitors. Let's take a look at one of their events in New Delhi to see what their strategy is.
As the tourism industry continues to boom in 2026, Malaysia is redefining its sector. Tourism Malaysia brought together travel trade partners, wedding planners, MICE operators, and media, all under one roof in New Delhi. The aim? To attract more Indian visitors under the Visit Malaysia Year 2026 campaign. Last year, Malaysia welcomed over 42 million international visitors, showing a 14.6% growth over the previous year. India accounted for over 1.6 million arrivals, reaffirming its rank as a dynamic, high-potential market.
India is one of our main tourist arrivals to Malaysia. So last year we received about 1.5 million visitors, Indian visitors to Malaysia, and that is largely because we have a visa-free policy right now. So we are hoping to attract more and more Indian tourists coming into Malaysia and explore Malaysia.
A panel discussion followed focusing on air connectivity, visa facilitation, and emerging segments such as weddings, luxury travel, and MICE. With over 240 weekly flights between India and Malaysia and continued visa-free entry for Indian nationals, accessibility remains one of Malaysia's strongest advantages.
I think for the Indian market, yes, they are still earlier when we came to the market. They still want to focus for the city, shopping, entertainment. So these three elements, again, the family, theme park, and so on, which is confined to our main cities like Kuala Lumpur, Penang, and certain extent to Johor Bahru. And these are the three main cities where cater pre-COVID for the Indian audience. Because during that time, the Indian audience would like to travel in a family and in a group. So those group movement become lesser and lesser post-COVID. And we see more FIT group, FIT tourists traveling on the independently, and they wanted to explore the country. So it is a good opportunity for us as well to showcase the other orbit destinations in Malaysia. We do have more than 150 million years old of our national park. You know, we do have a camping sites, we have a fishing area, and you can adventure the jungle. You know, they have a proper tour guides, night tour, and so on.
What can you tell us about the upcoming UPI integration with Malaysia?
Yes, you know, in today's world, everyone wants to travel with cashless. You know, they doesn't want to carry cash, either have to change traveler's checks and so on. So in the case of UPI, I think there was some kind of collaborations, memorandum has been signed between both government. And it's just a matter of time whereby this can be materialized so that the payment can be done in their own currencies.
We've heard that when visitors from India come to Malaysia, they can take a road trip. They have access to using your vehicles and your roads without any international driving license.
The surprising part of it, the Indian driving license isn't acceptable. It's approved in Malaysia. You're laughing at it. It is part of it where you can drive. If you're not on the longer stay, so for the short stays, the Indian driving license is accepted for you to drive.
Traffic slows down as it's passing one market unlike any other in Asia. This is the iconic Ima Keitel, the women's market of Manipur. Let's step inside and take a look.
Ima Keitel, also known as the Mother's Market in Imphal, is regarded as the largest all-women market in Asia and is believed to be the only one of its kind in the world. Around 3,000 Imas, or mothers, run the stalls here. The market is divided into two main sections on either side of the road. On one side, vendors sell vegetables, seasonal fruits, fresh fish, rice, spices, and daily household groceries. On the other hand, shoppers find finely woven handloom textiles and shawls, as well as household tools and locally crafted items. What makes the market truly distinct is its rule. Men are not allowed to trade here. Male vendors and shopkeepers are barred. In fact, in 2018, the state government announced that legal action would be taken under the Manipur Municipalities Act 2004 if any male vendor was found selling goods in the market. This is and remains women's economic space. The origins of Ima Keitel are deeply tied to Manipur's social history. The market traces its beginnings to Lalap Kaba, an ancient bonded labor system under which Meitei men were required to serve compulsorily in the military and on civil projects. With men frequently away from home, women were left to manage households and livelihoods. Out of necessity, they developed a structured market system, one that gradually evolved into what is today known as Ima Keitel.
It's for all the communities. Market is not only for Meitei, only for Naga, only for Takul. It's for all the communities. That is, every community from each and every corner from every corner of Manipur bring their products to this market and they sell here.
Today, even as Manipur navigates ethnic tensions and social strain, vendors insist that the market continues to reflect unity. For them, identity takes a backseat to shared livelihood. For many, a stall here is not rented space, it is legacy.
Till here, they bring their local products here and we are living like families in this market.
Stories like hers are common. Vendors often say that this market has financed children's education, helping produce doctors, officers, and professionals across the state. However, the present reality is challenging. Vendors say that earlier, sections were clearly organized, with fish sellers grouped and dairy vendors in another area. Today, that system appears less structured. More importantly, business has slowed. Transport disruptions and highway blockades have raised logistics costs. Ima Keitel is not just rows of stalls, it is a centuries-old system, born out of necessity, sustained through resistance, and protected through solidarity. As Manipur seeks stability and healing, these 3,000 mothers continue to open their stalls every morning, preserving not just trade, but tradition, unity, and economic independence.
People gather in Russia to bid farewell to winter in a festive way. Let's see how they celebrate Maslenitsa in Moscow.
Hundreds of people gathered at the Gorky-Leninsky Museum Reserve near Moscow to celebrate Maslenitsa. This traditional festival marks the end of the freezing winter and the arrival of spring. Also known as Butter Week or Pancake Week, Maslenitsa is an Orthodox Christian tradition celebrated in Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine at the end of the winter season. This year's festivities ran from February 16 to 22 and drew thousands of visitors. The celebration featured equestrian performances, delicious historical pancakes, and a 5-story tall scarecrow, said to be the tallest Maslenitsa effigy in Russia.
In China, it's not called New Year, but Spring Festival. Maslenitsa, for us, is also a way of saying goodbye to winter and welcoming spring. So there's a connection, and this year they just happened to fall at the same time.
The festival also reflects the history and heritage of the country. Horsemen from a Russian Hussar cavalry school recreated traditional training and competitions, showcasing the culture's roots with equestrian sports.
We have a very interesting task to show history and connect it with Maslenitsa. That's why we have 2 teams. One way or another, we show how horsemen of that time were trained, and there's a connection between the competitions of the Grodno Hussars and the Noble Squadron. We are spring and we will conquer winter. What else can we do?
When we talk about Maslenitsa and pancakes, the main symbol of the sun can't go unmentioned. Several stalls served pancakes with cranberry, raspberry, and sea buckthorn jam, along with sour cream, honey, and caviar. People were seen wearing traditional attire, enjoying pancakes and caviar. For the native people of Russia, the festival is a medium to connect with their roots and celebrate their identity.
This is becoming a good tradition. We want to maintain our culture and remind people that this is our genes, our blood, our ancestry.
As the day drew to a close, the highlight of the festival took center stage. A bonfire was lit as the 17-meter-tall giant effigy, a complex structure built over weeks by several craftsmen, was set ablaze. The bonfire is a symbol of the end of a long, harsh winter and of welcoming the season of renewal. From horseback performances to the blaze of a giant bonfire, Maslenitsa provided a stage to celebrate the Russian culture and tradition. With delicious food and festive joy, Russia bid farewell to the cold season and welcomed spring with warmth.
That's all we have for you on the show in this week's episode of Wings, but we'll return next weekend with more travel content for you. Until then, it's me, Johan Castell, signing off. Goodbye. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Problem with NATO is that
in an ever-changing, fast-paced world, identifying the pulse of global happenings is important. Because it is the pulse that truly measures the real nature of world events. It monitors the shifting geopolitical landscapes and anticipates what lies ahead. At WION World Pulse 2026, we tap into the heartbeat of events that matter to you and to the world. 7 pulsating themes, 100 plus thought leaders, 1 dynamic platform, WION World Pulse. The rhythm of the new world order. update.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one. In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. More than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power. Only on WION. World is one.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Top Stories with me, Vidut Kathuria. Let's take a look at the top headlines we're tracking for you at this moment. At least 20 people were killed in an Israeli strike that targeted a residential building in a town in South Lebanon. The attack hit a 3-story building, causing the structure to collapse. The Israeli military says it will continue to pursue every successor of late Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei. This as Iran's assembly of experts reach consensus on the name of a new leader. Iranian officials says the US and Israel warplanes hit 5 oil facilities in overnight strikes in and near the Iranian capital. 4 oil depots and a petroleum products transport center were hit. Bahrain says Iran attacked civilian targets and caused material damage to a water desalination plant following a drone attack. At least 3 people were injured. US President Donald Trump says the US strikes will continue till Iran's unconditional surrender. Trump dismisses threats from Iran's top official Ali Larijani, who has said that Trump must pay the price for the US-Israel strikes on Iran. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says India and China should view each other as partners and not rivals. Wang Yi says both countries should stick to the direction set by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping to improve ties without interference. Oil prices are expected to climb even further in the coming week as volatility persists in the Strait of Hormuz. Major oil-producing nations have already announced output cuts as supply chaos persists. And India will take on New Zealand in the men's T20 World Cup final in Ahmedabad later today. India are aiming to become the first side ever to successfully defend the T20 World Cup crown. The war in West Asia has spilled into its second week. Israel and US say their strikes have entered a new phase, hinting at intensifying and expanding the attacks. Iran, on the other hand, says it is ready for a long conflict, claiming the ability to fight an intense war for 6 months. US President Donald Trump says he is not interested in negotiating with Iran. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on Saturday, Trump said the air campaign could make negotiations a moot point if all potential leaders of Iran are killed and the Iranian military is destroyed. Initial military strikes by Israel and the US have already killed several senior members of Iran's political and military leadership, including Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. But a week into the war, any plan to cut off Iran's leadership, fully destroy its military, and spark a popular uprising against the current regime has not fully materialized. Since then, American and Israeli military claim to have struck about 4,000 targets in Iran, eroding Iran's capability to launch missiles and drones.
Ballistic missile attacks have decreased by 90% since day one. Drone attacks have decreased by 83% since day one. Having said this, we remain vigilant. Our strikes against the Iranian Navy have intensified.
However, Iran still has a formidable arsenal of both drones and missiles. The New York Times, citing estimates provided by US officials to Congress in classified briefings this week, reported that Iran still retains as much as about 50% of its missile program and even more of its drones. Iran has also said that it is ready for a long war, suggesting a more calibrated approach to their retaliatory actions. Iran's elite military force, the IRGC, claims it is capable of continuing at least a 6-month intense war at the current pace of operations.
The strikes carried out by the Islamic Republic will continue. We will not let them go. They should not think that we will allow the Americans to quickly bring this matter to an end and say, "We struck them, now let's wrap it up." This can only be wrapped up when they understand that they no longer have the right to attack Iran and when they compensate the Iranian nation for the damages. This disgraceful act they have created on the international stage carries a heavy cost. They assassinated the leader of Iran. The price for it will not be small.
Meanwhile, the regional repercussions have spiraled, with Saudi Arabia intercepting a wave of drones headed for targets including the diplomatic quarter in the capital Riyadh, and Kuwait saying an attack hit fuel tanks at its international airport. A government office building in Kuwait City was damaged after a drone attack. The footage showed fire engulfing the main building of Public Institution for Social Security. Earlier, Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian had apologized to Arab countries in the Persian Gulf for shooting scores of missiles and drones at them in retaliatory strikes. But even after the apology, the attacks continue. As the war in West Asia explodes further, perhaps the first signs of a fissure in Iran's leadership. A dispute over President Pezeshkian's pledge not to strike Gulf states is exposing divisions, but Tehran insists that it stands united. Reports citing sources close to Iranian leadership say that there are visible signs of divisions between hardliners and more pragmatic factions. Pezeshkian's apology to Gulf states for attacks on their territory and his pledge to rein in such attacks has prompted pushback, especially from the Revolutionary Guards and clerical elite. In a direct attack, hardliner cleric and lawmaker Hamid Rasai addressed the president on social media saying, "Your stance was unprofessional, weak and unacceptable." The judiciary chief, Gholam Hussein Mohseni Ejei, who is part of the temporary leadership council with Pezeshkian, also struck a different note. He said some regional states had allowed their territory to be used for attacks and heavy strikes on those targets will continue. Such reactions seem to have forced Pezeshkian into a partial climb down. The president later repeated his earlier statement on social media but left out the apology. However, it remains to be seen if the divide is over the strategic approach or just over Pezeshkian's recent statement. There is a feeling that Pezeshkian, who is not known as a great orator, fumbled the message. But all senior figures within the hierarchy are united in their commitment to defending Iran against US and Israel. Ali Larijani, another important figure in the leadership, echoed the same sentiments.
Trump does not understand that Iranians may have differences among themselves, but they are still Iranian, and they stand with Iran. The idea of breaking Iran apart will not gain their cooperation. And besides that, They have seen your history of interventions in the region. Our leaders are united on this issue and have no disagreements with one another. We have no divisions among ourselves in fighting Israel and the United States.
Meanwhile, clerics are accelerating the appointment of a new supreme leader, with the decision possible on Sunday. In Iran's unusual system, an elected president, government and parliament are subservient to a clerically appointed supreme leader. As leader for 36 years, Khamenei held sway over the hardline and moderate factions while retaining the ultimate say. We were earlier joined by Ben Aris. He's the founder and editor-in-chief of BNE in Telenews and also former Moscow bureau chief for the Daily Telegraph. Listen in to what he had to say about the ongoing West Asia crisis.
I think it's a race against time. I mean, we've got two sides. On one side, you've got the US-Israeli alliance, and they are massively armed, and they're doing the classic shock and awe strategy where you go in with overwhelming force and you try and deal a death blow in the first few weeks. That's to decapitate the Islamic State, which has happened very successfully, and at the same time to strike and take out as much of the military might of Iran as you can. You blow up dumps, you blow up army bases. Specifically, the Israeli-US team are going after the launchers. Iran has some 2,000 missiles and some very deadly ones. But if you destroy the 200-odd launchers that Iran has, then it can't fire them and they become useless. And on the other side of the equation, because it's an asymmetrical war, Iran is hunkering down. It's fired a massive volley of missiles in the first days, designed to do the same thing and to take out as much of the Israeli attack and defense as it can. And then it retreats, it hunkers down, it hides, and it tries to outweight the American assault. And the reason is that the number of offensive missiles that the US has is limited. The number of defensive missiles that the US and its allies have is limited. And part of the reason of the initial volley is not necessarily to do damage, it's just to run down the stocks of defensive missiles. And then Iran has this drone capacity. It can make 150,000 drones, 400 a day. And what it's going to do now is just wear away and denigrate the ability to defend itself. So we're exactly at the point in the middle of this strategy, and it's not clear who's winning. I mean, there are reports of the US already running low on missiles. There are reports of significant damage to the IRGC's ability to fire back. And this is what's going to play out in the next week. We're going to see which way this is going to go.
Iran Security Chief Ali Larijani has said that the US and Israel were seeking to break the Islamic Republic apart. In a pre-recorded interview broadcast on state TV, he asserted that the Iranian leaders were united in fighting both the US and Israel. Larijani said that US was seeking to replicate in Iran a scenario similar to Venezuela, where interim President Delcy Rodriguez cooperated with Washington, D.C. under the threat of violence after Nicolas Maduro's ouster. Larijani further went on to say that he believes the Americans do not understand the context of West Asia, especially Iran.
Trump does not understand that Iranians may have differences among themselves, but they are still Iranian, and they stand with Iran. The idea of breaking Iran apart will not gain their cooperation. And besides that, they have seen your history of interventions in the region.
Larijani insisted that there were no divisions among the leadership in Tehran over the war with the US and Israel. He spoke after President Masoud Pezeshkian apologized to neighboring countries for Iranian attacks.
Our leaders are united on this issue and have no disagreements with one another. We have no divisions among ourselves in fighting Israel and the United States.
Larijani's remarks come at a crucial point as Islamic Republic remains without a leader after the killing of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Larijani added that the three-member Leadership Council overseeing Iran had requested that arrangements be made to convene the assembly of experts but did not reveal any deadline.
Our Leadership Council has announced that the necessary arrangements should be made by the security forces so that the Assembly of Experts can convene under appropriate conditions and make its selection for the next Supreme Leader.
Earlier, Larijani had put out a social media post claiming the capture of a number of American troops. He said that the US was lying and claiming that the soldiers were killed instead of taken prisoners. However, Washington has denied the claim. Larijani made this post after US President Donald Trump attended a ceremony for the transfer of the 6 American soldiers killed in Kuwait. A massive explosion was reported near the US Embassy at Oslo in Norway. Authorities reported no casualties while adding that the cause of the incident is still unknown. In a statement, the Oslo Police Department said that the explosion occurred in the early hours of Sunday at around 1 a.m. local time. Law enforcement officials said that the blast struck the entrance of the embassy's consular section. The explosion also caused a minor damage. Now, Norwegian authorities have cordoned off the area near the US Embassy. Oslo Police is also on the lookout for the perpetrators of the incident. They also added that no explosives have been found in the vicinity. Police officials could be seen probing the site where the explosions took place. Eyewitnesses say that they saw a thick plume of smoke covering the entire street near the embassy.
Later I saw And I saw like a thick layer of smoke that covered the whole like the streets, where you like walking off the roads, but the streets. And later, I had a friend who told me that they tried to drive them here in the Bolt, Ed's Note, a ride-hailing app in Norway. And when they just asked to step out right here at Sørkedalsveien, Sørkedal Road, into Njardhallen, Njord Sports Hall, they got stopped by police.
There was protest.
US President Donald Trump has said that he did not want the Kurds to launch an offensive against Iran. Trump made a U-turn from his previous statement of involving Kurds into the fight, saying that he does not want the war to get any more complex. Listen in.
We're not looking to the Kurds going in. We're very friendly with the Kurds, as you know, but we don't want to make the war any more complex than it already is. No, rule that out. We don't want. Yeah, I have ruled it out. I don't want the Kurds going in. I don't want to see the Kurds get hurt, get killed. We've had a good relation. They're willing to go in, but I've told them I don't want them to go in. And do you think the map of Iran will... I just think the war is complicated enough without getting the Kurds involved.
On Thursday, Trump had told Reuters that he would be all for an offensive by Iranian Kurdish fighters in support of the US-Israeli war against the Islamic Republic. Now, Turkey has objected to US efforts to cause a civil war inside Iran, while warning Tehran after NATO intercepted a Turkey-bound ballistic missile launched from Iran this week. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan said any effort to stir up a civil war inside Iran in a bid to bring about regime change would be a mistake.
We, our intelligence agency, and our defense minister, everyone, are expressing to their counterparts the wrongness of this and the problems and difficulties it could cause. In other words, We are against all scenarios that aim to instigate a civil war in Iran or to create conflict along ethnic or religious lines.
Fidan also said he had raised the matter with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who had denied any American involvement in such an issue.
Frankly, I discussed this issue with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio during our telephone conversation. There are indications, rumors, that such a situation exists, that U.S. is working to mobilize Kurdish forces against Iranian government. He stated that they are not making such an effort, that they have no such intention. However, as I said at the time, Israel's intentions in this matter are no secret.
On Tuesday, CNN reported that the CIA was working to arm Iranian Kurdish forces with hopes of fomenting an uprising. Trump had later told that he was all up for Kurdish fighters to take up arms against Iran. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have also claimed to have targeted armed opposition groups hostile to Tehran in the autonomous Kurdish region of Iraq. Now, on the other hand, Iran's security chief Ali Larijani has reiterated his warning to Iranian Kurds in a state TV interview. Larijani said that Iranian forces have already told the group that if they make a mistake, they will bring you to account. The Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical trade choke point, is at the center of the economic fallout from the ongoing US-Israel conflict with Iran. Nearly 20 million barrels of oil pass through this narrow waterway every day, accounting for roughly 1/5 of global oil consumption. But despite US assurances of naval security and a multi-billion-dollar insurance program for ships, commercial traffic through the strait has dropped sharply. Tankers are delaying transit, insurance premiums have surged, and several exporters in the Gulf are already cutting production as cargoes struggle to leave the region. The disruption is pushing oil prices higher and raising fresh concerns about energy security, especially for Asian economies that depend heavily on Gulf crude. But the impact of the Strait of Hormuz disruption goes far beyond crude oil. The waterway is also a major corridor for global LNG supplies, with roughly 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas trade passing through the strait. At the same time, the Gulf region exports massive volumes of petrochemicals, plastic, feedstocks, fertilizers, refined fuels, and industrial chemicals, all of which rely on this shipping route. With vessels avoiding the region and freight risks rising, shipments of jet fuel, diesel, naphtha, and chemical cargoes are facing delays. Even dry bulk commodities, including coal and steel, are seeing disruption as shipping companies steer clear of the conflict zone. The result is a widening supply shock that is rippling through multiple industries. For global markets, the Strait of Hormuz disruption is quickly turning into a broader economic risk. Nearly 70% of the oil moving through the strait is destined for Asia, making countries like India, China, Japan, and South Korea particularly vulnerable. Higher energy prices are already increasing import bills, weakening currencies, and raising inflation risks. At the same time, disruptions are threatening manufacturing supply chains and agricultural inputs worldwide. And unless maritime security improves quickly, the economic costs of the conflict could continue to spread far beyond the oil market. The New York police have arrested 6 people after a man threw what officers said were ignited devices near the official residence of New York's Mayor Zohran Mamdani. The incident took place while far-right protesters were demonstrating at the Gracie Mansion. The New York Police Commissioner, Jessica Titch, said that the incident occurred when someone in the counter-protest lit and threw a device she described as a bit smaller than a football into the protesting crowd of about 20 people. Now, according to the NYPD, far-right influencer Jake Lang was demonstrating against alleged Islamification in front of the residence of Mayor Zoran Mamdani, when a man wearing a sweatshirt was handed a device wrapped in tape and billowing smoke by a fellow activist. He dropped it near a line of police before vaulting a crash barrier. The man also threw a similar device near Lang's group of protesters.
At 12:15 p.m., a protester associated with the Jake Lang group used pepper spray against counter-protesters and was arrested thereafter. At approximately 12:38 p.m., a counter-protester identified as Amir Balat, an 18-year-old man, lit and threw an ignited device toward the protest area, landing in the crosswalk of East 87th Street and East End Avenue.
The devices contained nuts, bolts and screws as well as a fuse, but it was not yet clear if they were functional improvised explosive devices or hoax imitations. She clarified that there was no indication that the incident was related to the ongoing hostilities in Iran. Now, witnesses reported seeing flames and smoke as it traveled through the air before it struck a barrier a few feet from police officers. He also got a second device from a man, but moments later, he and the other man were detained by police. The police has apprehended 18-year-old suspect Amir Balat along with 6 others. Now, in another related development, the New York Police Department has reported the death of one of its officers due to a medical episode while deployed to Kuwait in support of Operation Epic Fury. Officer Sofly Tavius served in the 42nd Infantry Division in the U.S. Army National Guard. That's a wrap on this bulletin. News and updates will continue on the other side of this short break. Keep watching WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
The problem with NATO is that...
In an ever-changing, fast-paced world, identifying the pulse of global happenings is important. Because it is the pulse that truly measures the real nature of world events. It monitors the shifting geopolitical landscapes and anticipates what lies ahead. At WION World Pulse 2026, we tap into the heartbeat of events that matter to you and to the world. 7 pulsating themes, 100 plus thought leaders, one dynamic platform. WION World Pulse. the rhythm of the New World Order.
Hi, I'm Miraj and you are watching Take It Out. Now, all eyes this week were on the Mobile World Congress that was held in Barcelona. The biggest mobile tech fair in the world showcased gadgets and companies from all over the world. And as you'd expect, AI was everywhere. Now, apparently the entire industry is being reconstructed around artificial intelligence. From there, we'll go and check out these drones that are being used in China to maintain and inspect power lines, to an Australian company that's using a gun to bring down drones. From a mobile phone with a robotic arm to another with a wafer-thin screen, a desktop AI companion, and even a dumb phone with no apps but an AI assistant, there was so much to see at the Mobile World Congress. Here were the showstoppers. Have a look.
The world's biggest mobile tech gathering, Mobile World Congress, has just wrapped up in Barcelona. The tech gathering offered a clear glimpse of what connected life will look like next. But this year's show also unfolded against global disruption, with travel chaos linked to the conflict involving US, Israel and Iran. But the event wasn't just a product parade. It was a snapshot of how fast the industry is rebuilding itself around artificial intelligence. This year, the showcases ranged from AI-powered smartphones and wearables to robotics, network intelligence and AI-driven digital services, with around 3,000 exhibitors unveiling concept devices and AI-first platforms. Here's a look at the tech that really stood out on the show floor. A phone with a built-in robot arm has been unveiled at the show in Barcelona. From the outside, it looks like a normal handset, but the robot arm moves on gesturing it. Chinese tech company Honor is pitching it as an AI companion that can show emotion and shoot your video. Trigger it with a hand gesture and a tiny robot arm pops out of the top. Ask what it thinks of your clothes and it has an opinion.
Yeah. I do. Your outfit looks really stylish and professional, and the dark colored jacket with the Honor logo gives a sense of unity and fashion.
Play some music and the phone even dances to the beat. The robot camera uses a 3-axis gimbal system to shoot smooth video. AI tracking keeps the lens locked on the action. And a steady mode holds the frame even when there is a lot of movement in front of the camera.
For decades, the form factor of smartphone has barely changed. But as AI technology evolves, we need a new species of device. By merging robotics with our latest smartphone technology, we've created the Honor robot phone, which can sense and interact with the world.
Chinese electronics maker Lenovo showcased its concept devices at the mobile show, including a desktop robot. This one is designed to live right on your desk and help you work. It's called the AI Workmate. Simply ask it to share your presentation and the robot projects your slides onto a nearby surface, a wall or even your desk. It can also read hand gestures, scan and summarize documents and organize your notes as you go. It's not just a smart assistant, it is a physical co-worker designed to sit in your workspace and think alongside you.
So the AI Workmate is a companion device for your PC. So what it does is it allows you to leverage AI to either create presentations, help you manage your schedule throughout the day, but also with the AI Workmate, there's some articulation to the device that gives it a little bit of a fun factor.
Chinese electronics company TCL is upgrading its flagship NXT paper display technology. The promise is simple: a screen that behaves more like paper, designed to be easier on your eyes, less glare, less strain, and a display that reads more like a printed page than a phone screen. The technology is the centerpiece of TCL's new handset, the NXT Paper 70 Pro. NXT Paper is designed to mimic natural light and the look of real paper, making it gentler than traditional displays. Users can switch between different viewing modes: color paper, ink paper, and max ink, each one changing how the screen renders content.
Here today we offer a display technology at the hardware level. This is the first thing. Second thing is that the display next paper technology we combine with the operating system, which can provide it's like a black and white effect, like a paper-like. So the magic is not only about software, it's like in the surface of the display.
Mobile phone maker HMD is rolling out an AI assistant across some of its latest handsets this year. The company is best known for making feature phones, devices that sit between basic handsets and full smartphones and come with fewer apps for less distractions. For the first time, HMD is building feature phones with an onboard AI assistant. The focus is not big promises.
What's the weather going to be like in Barcelona today?
There will be intermittent clouds with a high of 16 degrees and a low of 7 degrees in Barcelona today.
The tech is designed to execute small and practical tasks like making calls, setting alarms, turning on the torch, and answering simple questions, all triggered with a few short voice commands.
I think the AI functionality will help users even be more delighted with using feature phones. We know that our feature phones are legendary for being simple to use, but there's always things such as setting an alarm clock, which might have a few layers of menus that you might want to kind of not do, especially if you're an older person.
Why did the smartphone go to school? Because it wanted to improve its aptitude.
Given the rapid evolution in drone technology and their pervasiveness in modern battlefields, it's no surprise that counter-drone technology is fast catching up. Now, there's an Australian company, they've just unveiled a drone gun. Well, no, it doesn't blow it out of the sky. It fires radio waves and forces the drone to land to the ground. The only question is, can they be reused? Have a look.
Modern conflict is increasingly being shaped by small, unmanned systems that are cheaper, faster to deploy, and harder to detect. From front lines to civilian airspace, drones are now used for surveillance, precision strikes, and electronic disruption. As their presence grows, so does the need for technology that can detect, track, and disable them without causing collateral damage. In Sydney, an Australian defence technology company called Drone Shield is developing systems designed specifically for this role, countering unmanned aerial vehicles using directed radio frequency methods instead of traditional munitions. The same technology is now being used by Ukrainian forces to defend against hostile drones on the battlefield. The process begins with detection. Sensors scan the environment, identifying the presence of unmanned aircraft and analyzing their signals.
So you might be in Ukraine, a person in a trench, and you hear that overhead buzzing sound. If we are in the West, hear that in the city, we just get annoyed, right? There, it's a life or death situation, because if a drone sees you, it goes kamikaze style towards you, it has explosives strapped to it, so you're very likely to die. So the idea is that if you hear that, or even before you hear that, when you hear it, chances are it's too late because it's too close to you. So our devices can often give you multi-kilometer range of alert, well before the drone can see you.
Once a threat is confirmed, operators can choose to monitor the drone or disable it using a handheld system known as the drone gun. The device uses concentrated radio wave energy to interrupt the drone's communication, navigation, and video transmission links.
Alternatively, you want to take a drone gun out and basically point it at the drone, and that creates a block between the drone or swarm of drones and the outside world, and the drone says, okay, I'm lost, I don't know where I am, so I'm just going to crash or gonna land.
When those connections are lost, the aircraft is forced to land or crash without the need for a kinetic strike. The approach is designed to work against multiple targets simultaneously and to reduce risk in urban or sensitive areas. The handheld drone gun is designed for situations where a quick response is needed. It can be carried by a single operator, switched on within seconds, and aimed directly at a moving target in the sky. But this is only one part of a larger system. The same technology can also be installed as a fixed setup to protect a permanent location. In this format, multiple sensors are placed around a site to create a constant surveillance zone. They continuously scan for drone signals, detect their presence, and show their position on a live screen. This allows security teams to see how many drones are in the air, how far they are, and in which direction they are moving. If required, the disruption system can be activated from the same control station without physically chasing the target. There are also vehicle-mounted versions of the system. These are used when protection is needed over a large or moving area. The vehicle carries both the detection sensors and the disruption unit, turning it into a mobile counter-drone platform.
So you see all of those strategic deployments of drones and you're saying, okay, any future war will have all the normal things you'd expect, like tanks and artillery and missiles, but also it will have drones, and with it you need counter-drone systems to cover that.
This means the technology can move with convoys, temporary bases, or field operations while continuing to monitor the airspace around them. The advantage of this non-kinetic method is control. Because the drone is not blown up, there is no falling debris and no risk to people or infrastructure below. The aircraft simply loses its link and comes down on its own. This makes the system suitable for use in places like airports, stadiums, public events, and other sensitive locations where safety is critical.
In the frigid mountains in China's Anhui province, the power grid's biggest enemy is nature. Power lines get iced, getting to them can be a challenge. To counter that, China has released an autonomous army of robots and drones. Now these drones fly autonomously, check the lines, map out the bits that need de-icing, come down, give that data, and workers deploy these robots that climb these lines and de-ice them. It's straight out of the future. Have a look.
Winter doesn't just change the landscape. In some places, it completely changes how essential systems are maintained. When temperatures drop and mountain paths turn slippery, even a routine power line inspection can become a full-day climb, and when thick fog swallows 60-meter-high transmission towers, visibility is no longer guaranteed. This is where a new set of tools is quietly reshaping the way power networks are managed. Deep inside the Dabi Mountains in East China's Anhui province, 4 major transmission corridors carry electricity to the Yangtze River Delta. During cold waves, ice builds up quickly on these lines, adding weight, increasing risk, and making manual inspection both slow and hazardous. To keep the power flowing during the Spring Festival peak, engineers here are now working with drones, AI-based image analysis, and a de-icing robot that can be placed directly on the wire. Reaching these transmission towers is still a physical task. The terrain does not allow vehicles, so crews walk for hours, carrying their equipment through narrow, icy mountain paths. But once they arrive, the inspection process is very different from the past. A drone lifts off, and in less than 5 minutes, it completes a close-range check of the entire structure, capturing high-resolution images of key components. Even in low visibility, the aircraft can follow a preset route and position itself close to the tower.
What do we do if the fog is too thick and we can't see the tower? In such cases, We rely on our autonomous inspection method, allowing the drone to fly close to the tower on its own. This approach enables us to clearly capture images of many components, such as checking for ice or snow accumulation on the tower. The photos are then instantly transmitted back to our system, where the large model can annotate each image, identifying any potential defects on the tower.
The images are sent back in real time, where AI systems automatically tag each part of the structure and flag possible faults. Ice removal has also moved to a remote process. Instead of climbing the tower and striking the conductor manually, a drone now carries a compact de-icing robot and places it directly on the ground wire. The device moves along the line and breaks the ice layer while operators control it from the ground. A 20-meter section of ice-covered wire can be cleared in about a minute. At the end of the day, the drones return with hundreds of images. What used to take hours of manual review is now completed in just a few minutes. AI systems analyze the data, identify potential hazards, and create a digital record of the line's condition. This allows maintenance teams to plan targeted repairs instead of conducting repeated field visits. The people operating these systems represent another shift. With an average age of under 30, many of them are trained both in power line construction and in drone operations, image processing, and intelligent grid management.
Now, this is a story that I am clearly prejudiced about. One of the most profound, one of the oldest expressions of human creativity is under siege by AI. Music. Now, you guys might have heard about this story about how this country song in the US made it to the top of the charts, and it was an AI-generated song. Now, I'm all for AI tools being used to speeden up the process or make things easier, but to make music, do we need AI to do that? Someone once said that the existence of music is the surest proof we have of the existence of God. From the beginning of our history, music has always been part of a profoundly human experience. Over the last couple of centuries, every shift in technology has changed how songs are produced, distributed, and consumed, from vinyl records to MP3s to a slew of formats for digital streaming. But it's always been composed by human beings. Inside an office near Harvard Square, a different kind of recording session is underway. There are no instruments being played or recorded, no vocalist inside a sound booth, yet an Afrobeat track is coming together. The flute is refined, the percussion is adjusted, and the structure of the song is reshaped within seconds. This track is being generated by artificial intelligence. The platform is called Suno. Launched in 2022, the AI music company has grown rapidly. It now claims to have 100 million users around the world. Its premise is simple but transformative.
It took a little while to make Suno. The truth is we actually thought we would start a different company because we thought it would be too hard to make good music. And a few months after we started, we had some breakthroughs and we realized it wasn't too hard, and we very quickly tried to put out a very crude version of a music making machine.
Users describe a song in text, upload a short melody, hum a tune, or even submit a voicemail. Within moments, the system generates a complete track, lyrics, vocals, and instrumentation. Now, electronic music has been created on laptops for a while now.
Ultimately, the machine needs to understand how everybody describes music, and it kind of learns to map those descriptions onto how to make new songs.
But more orchestrated compositions always required a studio, sessions, musicians, and production teams. To reproduce that has been the biggest challenge. Unlike text, which is neatly divided into words, audio is continuous and often unstructured. For AI systems to understand music, engineers first had to break massive sound files into smaller components that machine learning models could process and reconstruct. That breakthrough unlocked the platform's rapid evolution. Early versions were rough, but user enthusiasm signaled demand. As generative AI tools accelerated in the early 2020s, music creation became the next frontier. Today, platforms like Suno can map descriptions given by humans and translate them into new songs. For many users, this is the first time that they are creating music. While professionals may not use end-to-end AI solutions for music, AI tools are becoming a part of the workflow, analyzing sound, repairing defects, refining mixes, and developing demos.
The thing that we are most proud of is that 100 million people have made music on Suno, and the vast majority of whom have never made music before. And this is what's so amazing, and this is ultimately what centers music in people's lives much more than, say, only building a professional tool chain.
The rise of AI-generated music has hardly been frictionless. Major record labels filed copyright infringement lawsuits, arguing that much like they did with publishers, AI systems were using copyrighted music without permission for training. The legal battle also highlighted a broader tension: technology advancing faster than regulation. Recently, Suno reached a settlement with Warner Music Group, signaling a shift towards licensed AI music and potential collaboration. Concerns, however, remain. Independent musicians argue that generative AI systems are built on their intellectual property, raising questions about transparency, consent, and compensation. Musicians also point to long-standing structural imbalances in the music industry, where major players negotiate deals that smaller artists cannot.
In 1984, musicians lost the right to collectively bargain. That means that we can't strike like SAG and what Hollywood has done during the writer's strike. It also means that we don't have the right to collectively bargain. So when streaming happened, Spotify and the three major labels could talk to each other and make deals that left independent artists out of it. And that is happening again in the AI moment, where we see the major labels striking licensing deals with AI companies.
AI use in music is only going to go up. It's being used to experiment with ideas, accelerate production timelines, and even create entirely new melodies. On the positive front, what once required a team can now be executed by one individual. The implications are profound. For those who use AI tools to hone their craft, it signals empowerment.
If today we are able to make a song and we are able to imagine like what Kishore Kumar would be able to add in it, and we have the technology to replicate it, I find it very cool personally, and I'm a fan of this new technology because it just opens a new gate for all the creative things that you could do with it.
Recently, an AI-generated song topped the country charts in the United States. It was a moment of reckoning. Following the buzz that it generated, there's been quite a backlash. A number of music streaming platforms have announced that they have entirely banned AI-generated music. Others have embraced it. But more than that, the question that comes up, can artificial intelligence generate music that touches the very core of human existence and shared experiences? If you've been following the news, then you must have heard about Anthropic, the AI company's tussle with the US government. Now, the government has classified it as a supply chain risk after Anthropic refused to give the government unfettered use of its AI technology for surveillance or for, well, driving autonomous weapons. What's been really heartening to see is that people in the know, people who work in AI, people at Google and at OpenAI have written an open letter urging their employers to stand up to the US government so that their technology is not used for surveillance of citizens and not used for guiding autonomous weapons. The letter that they've written is titled, "We Shall Not Be Divided." That's the thought I'll leave you with. That's all the time we have for you in this episode of Check It Out. Keep watching WION, like us on social media, and have a great weekend.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION. World is One. Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is One.
The problem with NATO is that...
In an ever-changing, fast-paced world, identifying the pulse of global happenings is important. Because it is the pulse that truly measures the real nature of world events. It monitors the shifting geopolitical landscapes and anticipates what lies ahead. At WION World Pulse 2026, we tap into the heartbeat of events that matter to you and to the world. 7 pulsating themes, 100 plus thought leaders, one dynamic platform, WION World Pulse. The rhythm of the new world order. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes. And millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is One.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Beyond the noise and rhetoric, no election, no ballot issue too small. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. More than just headlines. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION. World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One. Let's start with the headlines. At least 20 people were killed in an Israeli strike that targeted a residential building in a town in South Lebanon. The attack hit a 3-story building, causing the structure to collapse. Israeli military says it will continue to pursue every successor of late Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And this as Iran's assembly of experts, they reach a consensus on the name of the new leader. Iranian officials says the US and Israel warplanes hit 5 oil facilities in overnight strikes in and near the Iranian capital. 4 oil depots and a petroleum products transport center were also hit. Bahrain says Iran attacked civilian targets and caused material damage to a water desalination plant following a drone attack. At least 3 people were injured. Iran says more than 1,200 dead and over 10,000 civilians injured in the week-long war with the US and Israel. Iran claims that more than 200 women and children are among those who are killed. President Trump says the United States strikes will continue till Iran's unconditional surrender. Dismisses threats from Iran's top official, Ali Larijani, who has said that Trump must pay the price for the US-Israel strikes on Iran. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says India and China should view each other as partners, not rivals. Yi says that both countries should stick to the directions set by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping in order to improve ties without interference. Oil prices are expected to climb even further in the coming week. As volatility persists in the Strait of Hormuz, major oil-producing nations have already announced output cuts as supply chaos persists. India will take on New Zealand in the men's T20 World Cup final in Ahmedabad later today. India are aiming to become the first side ever to successfully defend the T20 World Cup crown. As the war in West Asia continues, US and Israel are bombing Iran from capital to coast, while Iran is repeatedly targeting the US bases in the Gulf. Amid the escalating hostilities, warring sides have also started to engage each other on the information domain, proving that truth is the first casualty in a war. Well, in the latest, US President Donald Trump has accused Iran of a deadly strike on a girls' elementary school in the southern town of Manipur. A strike that Iran has blamed on both Israel and the United States, responsible for killing more than 150 innocent civilians, mostly students.
United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war, kill 170
No, in
people?
my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Nixon? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Still
But
investigating.
the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
We think it was done by Iran. Because they're very inaccurate, as you know, with their munitions. They have no accuracy whatsoever. It was done by Iran.
Well, contrary to the US President Trump and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, a US probe into the bombing of the Manipur Girls' School has hinted at the potential involvement of US forces. The report, which was published by Reuters, had cited US military officials who were investigating the bombing. Reuters had noted that officials were still awaiting more details about the investigation, yet were in the process of identifying what type of munition was used or why the US might have struck the school. They had also not absolved the role of Israel's military, which has claimed that it is not aware of any US or Israeli strike on a school. Another issue is capturing or killing of troops. Well, Iran's chief of national security, Ali Larijani, has claimed to have captured American soldiers, alleging that the US is not revealing the true number of casualties. The US military, however, rejected these claims, saying that Iran is peddling lies. Now, availability of ammunition is also a sticking point in the conflict. The Trump administration claims US munition stockpiles, and particularly air-to-ground precision-guided weapons, have never been better, allowing for long-term operations. Now, reports, however, warn that expensive air defense interceptors like Patriot missiles are in short supply, adding that if the conflict drags on, the US may struggle to maintain its posture in the battle. Trump has also claimed to have completely demolished Iran's military, but Iran's Revolutionary Guards have reiterated that they still stand tall. In a fresh statement, the IRGC said that the country's forces are capable of fighting an intense war for 6 months. Now, the next discrepancy is surrounding the Iranian retaliation, which involves attacks in the Gulf and some EU countries, which are facing the brunt of drones and missiles and are questioning the intent from Tehran. Well, back in Iran, Ali Larijani insisted that there is no division among the leadership in Tehran, which was opposite to Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian's statement, who apologized for the attacks on neighboring countries, suggesting that Iran was retaliating against nations that are staging rounds to mount US or Israeli attacks. Listen to this.
Iranian President Mr. Masoud Pezeshkian's statement today fits perfectly into the context which we have mentioned. That is, the statement of, "We will not attack a place that does not allow attacks, and we apologize for having attacked so far," is essentially the statement that we have been emphasizing.
Well, amidst the fast-evolving situation, we are filtering the flood of information here at WION and bringing you insights from experts who understand the strategic and geopolitical stakes involved. And to do that, joining us on the broadcast is Mr. Chris Doyle. He is the director of CABU, which is the Council for Arab-British Understanding, and the current lead spokesperson for CABU. Thank you so much, Mr. Doyle, for joining us on the broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Mr. Doyle, the conflict has entered the second week, and Prime Minister Netanyahu has claimed that Israel and the US have many more targets and surprises prepared. Well, this while Iran's hierarchy is said to be showing signs of fracturing, which have only become more pronounced with President Masoud Pezeshkian's promise to not strike the Gulf countries. Now, I just want to understand from you, what's your assessment of where the situation is headed from here on?
Well, we're entering the second week of this war, and it's very clear that it's not going to be the nice, quick, easy war that some thought that it might be. It's going to go on for some time, and there's going to be a lot of damage, a lot of destruction, and a lot of impact on the region, the economies, even the environment. And we're still no closer to getting any certainties about this. We are not really sure what the end game will be, what will satisfy the United States and Israel to end their war in Iran. We hear differing ambitions. It's veered from stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon to stopping its ballistic missile program to regime change and total unconditional surrender. But I think what is also clear is that Iran is also quite determined not to give in. It's not going to be coerced into surrendering. And it has continued its attacks. There's reports of an attack on a desalination plant in Bahrain. It will continue to attack other sites within the Gulf, albeit at a lower intensity than before, because, of course, Israel and the United States have taken out a lot of their missile launches.
Right.
But, you know, it can go into different areas. Iran has other capabilities, non-conventional capabilities, sleeper cells and so forth. So we have to be prepared to be in for the long haul, I'm afraid.
Right, and of course, this would not be the time to make these grave miscalculations. Well, we know that the officials are trying to decipher President Pezeshkian's apology, and they have largely urged caution in reading it as a sign of Tehran seeking an off-ramp or perhaps surrender. In fact, Iran's Assembly of Experts has announced that they have reached consensus on the name of the successor to the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now, with neither side willing to step back, does that also heighten the risk of the conflict becoming more protracted than the US would have initially liked?
Absolutely. I mean, Donald Trump the other day was saying, you know, 4 or 5 weeks, it could go beyond that. I mean, it could end before. You could see this conflict going in all sorts of directions. You could get a quite sudden regime collapse. We've seen some divisions surfacing in the last 24 hours within Iran. Lack of clarity as to this issue about attacking Gulf states. But for sure, this could go on for a very long time. The formal conventional conflict may end much faster. We saw that, of course, with Iraq. And you all remember George Bush standing on an American warship with the banner "Mission Accomplished," which was very, very unwise, and the war continued for a long time afterwards. So we could get a situation like that, where there is chaos, instability in Iran, attacks still happen against American targets, even though an Iranian authority may have collapsed, disappeared. So this could go in any sort of direction. It's unlikely to go in a very positive one now, very sadly, because that option for negotiation, that option for sorting out the differences and the issues diplomatically does seem to have been killed off with this war.
Of course, Mr. Doyle, and we can only speculate at this point, but you know, the conflict has rapidly widened as well, spilling into Lebanon and reaching as far as the Eastern Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean. And now the burden is being felt by allies and countries that did not seek this war. But Trump has made it clear that diplomacy, as you've also mentioned, in some ways has made it seem like a dispensable tool, and will only accept Iran's unconditional surrender while leaving open the possibility of deploying, you know, American troops on the ground. How far do you think Trump will be willing to go, given the economic and humanitarian toll that is continuing to mount with each passing day, and an American base which is very averse to these open-ended conflicts, as we've seen in the past?
Well, absolutely. There's not a lot of support for this war in the United States. There's certainly not a lot of support for it within Europe. So President Trump may be getting more desperate, as indeed may the Iranian regime as well, because what we're really seeing here is both sides in varying ways are losing. They are going to come out of it in a worse situation, perhaps, than they entered it. Iran is going to be hit very hard, is being hit very hard, but the United States is going to pay a very heavy toll economically, also potentially reputationally, with its allies. So the longer this goes on, the worse it is really for everybody. And I don't think it's going to help the Iranian people. And I think of those people who maintain that this war is about helping them. I would caution against that sort of view. I think that actually it's going to see Iran in a much worse situation than before. And that would apply to West Asia generally. You're right. It has spread across the region. What Israel is doing right now in Lebanon is unconscionable. We're seeing massive displacement, strikes across the country. There's no real attention to that and the manner that it is fought. And it could go indeed to other theatres that we haven't yet seen getting involved. It's alarming.
Absolutely, Mr. Dolan. It is, of course, a very delicate and evolving situation, and we'll have to see how each side recalibrate their next move. But for now, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you.
Now, as the war in West Asia explodes further, perhaps the first signs of a fissure in Iran's leadership, a dispute over President Pezeshkian's pledge not to strike Gulf states is exposing divisions. But Tehran insists that it stands united, and reports citing sources which are close to the Iranian leadership, they say that there are visible signs of division between hardliners and more pragmatic factions. Pezeshkian's apology to the Gulf states for attacks on their territory and his pledge to rein in such attacks has now prompted pushback, especially from the Revolutionary Guards and clerical elite. In a direct attack, hardline cleric and lawmaker Hamid Razai, he addressed the president on social media saying, "Your stance was unprofessional, weak and unacceptable." The judiciary chief, Ghulam Hussain Mohseni-Ejei, who was part of the temporary leadership council with Pezeshkian, he also struck a different note. He said that some regional states had allowed their territory to be used for attacks, and this is amid heavy strikes on those targets which will continue. Such reactions seem to have forced Pezeshkian into a partial climb down. The president later repeated his earlier statement on social media, but left out the apology. But it remains to be seen if the divide is over the strategic approach or just over Pezeshkian's recent statement. There is a feeling that Pezeshkian, who is not known as a great orator, fumbled the message. But all senior figures within the hierarchy are united in their commitment to defending Iran against US and Israel. Ali Larijani, who is another important figure in the leadership, has echoed the same sentiments. Listen to this.
Trump does not understand that Iranians may have differences among themselves, but they are still Iranian, and they stand with Iran. The idea of breaking Iran apart will not gain their cooperation. And besides that, they have seen your history of interventions in the region. Our leaders are united on this issue and have no disagreements with one another. We have no divisions among ourselves in fighting Israel and the United States.
Meanwhile, the clerics are accelerating the appointment of a new supreme leader, with a decision possible on Sunday. In Iran's unusual system and elected president, government and parliament are subservient to a clerically appointed supreme leader. As leader for 36 years, Khamenei held sway over the hardline and moderate factions while retaining the ultimate say. Global financial markets are responding to the escalating conflict in the Gulf. But the reaction so far has been uneven rather than catastrophic. While all markets have seen the sharpest move, Brent crude has surged close to $92 per barrel, rising sharply in just a few days. Safe haven assets are also gaining. Gold prices have rallied on geopolitical risk, while investors move towards the US dollar and other defensive assets. Equity markets initially sold off as the conflict escalated. South Korean index witnessed a record fall, though it paired losses the very next day. The sell-off has now been relatively contained so far, suggesting that investors are still assessing whether this will become a prolonged economic shock or not. Despite the economic escalation, global markets are showing surprising resilience. And one reason is that investors are still betting the conflict will remain geographically contained and relatively short-lived. But historically, markets tend to stabilize after geopolitical shocks unless global trade or energy supplies face a sustained disruption. Of course, the second reason is that financial markets are still supported by strong positioning in major sectors such as technology and energy. Even as investors rotate away from riskier assets and smaller companies, markets therefore remain volatile, but they have not yet priced in a full-scale global economic crisis. Now, the real risk for global markets now lies in energy supply. The Strait of Hormuz, which normally carries around 20% of global oil and gas shipments, making it one of the most critical energy choke points in the world. If disruption persists here, analysts warn that oil prices could surge past $100 per barrel, triggering renewed inflation pressures across major economies. And that could delay interest rate cuts, weaken global growth, and trigger deeper corrections in financial markets. Market moves in the coming week will determine how this war unfolds. Of course, we'll have to wait and watch.